when the great silver fish carried the two youths across the river and disappeared into the deep water. The young man and young woman stood silently on the riverbank. They were wet. They were cold. They were tired. But for the first time in many days, they felt hope again. The girl whispered to the boy, "We lost one calabash, but maybe this second one still has a purpose." The boy nodded, clutching the remaining calabash to his chest, the one the old woman had given them. They had to protect it. Their journey was far from over. They walked for what felt like an eternity, entering a strange and eerie forest. The trees here were different. They bent low their branches like long, gnarled fingers. The wind wasn't just wind, it spoke. It whispered in a language that sounded almost human. Sometimes the wind cried out in sorrow. Other times it laughed a cold, mocking laugh, and then, most unnervingly, it would say their names. The sound slithering through the leaves. Fear, cold and sharp, crawled across their skin, raising the hairs on their arms. But they remembered the old woman's words, a warning that echoed in their minds. Do not let anyone touch the calabash until you reach home. They held it tight, a silent promise between them. Hours bled into one another. The dim light of day faded, and night came again, wrapping the forest in a thick blanket of darkness. And in that deep darkness, they saw it, a faint, flickering light glowing between the trees. It was a small hut, a sign of life in this desolate place. As they drew closer, they saw an old man sitting outside, roasting corn over a small fire. He looked harmless, almost friendly, with wrinkles crinkling around his eyes. He saw them and called out, his voice warm, "My children, come warm yourselves by my fire." They approached slowly, cautiously, their instincts on high alert. The old man offered them some of the roasted corn, the smell of it making their empty stomachs ache. But just as they were about to take it, he reached a hand toward the calabash clutched in the boy's arms. Instantly, the boy stepped back, pulling the precious object away. The girl shook her head firmly. No one must touch this calabash. The old man's friendly smile twisted into something strange, a smile too wide, with teeth that seemed too sharp. In a blink, the fire went out, plunging them into darkness. The hut vanished. The old man's face contorted, melting into shadows. It wasn't a man at all. It was a forest spirit, disguised to trick them, to steal what wasn't his. The spirit let out a loud, frustrated hiss, but seeing their unwavering resolve, it dissolved into smoke and disappeared. They had survived the first test. Exhausted but determined, they found shelter under a large tree for the night. But rest did not come easily. As they drifted into a light, troubled sleep, shadows began to move around them. These weren't normal shadows cast by the moonlight. They had form like people without faces, shifting and swirling in the dark. The shadows whispered, their voices a venomous chorus. "Give us the calabash. You don't deserve it. Give it to us." The whispers grew louder, more insistent, glowing at their minds. The girl cried out, covering her ears to block out the tormenting voices. The boy, filled with a surge of protective anger, held the calabash high and shouted into the darkness, "Leave us alone." His voice, full of courage, shattered the illusion. The shadows recoiled and vanished as if they were never there. They had survived the second test. On the fifth day of their journey, their path was blocked by a massive cave. It loomed before them, a dark mouth in the side of the mountain. Just as despair began to creep in, the calabash in the girl's hands started to glow with a soft, gentle light, pulsing rhythmically, as if it were a heart guiding them forward. They knew they had to go inside. They entered the dark cave, and immediately, the air grew thick with echoes. But these were not echoes of their footsteps. They were echoes of their deepest fears. Their own voices twisted against them. "Turn back." One echo called, "You will fail." Another taunted, "You cannot survive." A third whispered, sounding just like the boy's own moment of doubt. The girl's hands trembled, and she almost dropped the calabash. The boy felt a primal urge to run, to flee the suffocating darkness. But they looked at each other, drew strength from their shared ordeal, and kept moving forward, one step at a time. Just as they felt they could go no further, A brilliant, blinding light filled the cave, and the exit appeared right before them. They had survived the third test. Finally, after overcoming the forest, the spirits, and their own fears, they reached a tall mountain. From the top, they could see the path leading to their village. Home was within reach, but as they stood on the peak, the calabash began to shake violently in the girl's hands. It glowed brighter and brighter, the light becoming almost too intense to look at. Then, with a soft click, it opened by itself. They peered inside, their hearts pounding with anticipation, expecting food, or gold, or some magical treasure for their troubles. But inside, there was only a single piece of cloth. It was simple, old, and torn at the edges. The boy's face fell. He whispered, his voice filled with disappointment. "What is this? After everything we've been through? Just a piece of old cloth." But the girl stared at it, and a slow realization dawned in her eyes. She understood something deeper. Her eyes widened, and she gently lifted the cloth, holding it to her chest as if it were the most precious jewel in the world. This belongs to the old man who raised us," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "This cloth. It was from his pocket. This was his blessing, his protection." Tears streamed down their faces as the truth washed over them. They finally understood. The calabash was not about magic. It was not about wealth. It was about guidance. It was about faith. It was about finishing the journey with a pure heart, untainted by greed or fear. The tests were not just obstacles. They were meant to strengthen their spirit, to prove they were worthy of returning home. The mountain wind blew gently through the valley, carrying their tears away. The path to their home lay open before them, clear and welcoming. And the final part of their destiny was waiting. Thanks for watching. The final part of this incredible story is coming soon. So make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't want to miss the emotional conclusion to their journey.